I am here with a wonderful friend, colleague, thought leader, Mary O'Malley. Welcome, Mary.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here, Mark.
Same here. Let me say a few words about you before we launch in. So Mary O'Malley is an author, counselor, and awakening mentor in Kirkland, Washington State. In the early 1970s, a powerful awakening led Mary to begin changing her relationship with her challenges, freeing her from a lifelong struggle with darkness. Mary's new book, What's in the Way is the Way, provides a revolutionary approach for healing our fears, anxieties, shame, and confusion so we could live from a place of ease and well-being. I just want to say that I came across your work. I can't even remember your first book. Your first book, The Gift of Our Compulsions, magically appeared somehow in my office. And I read it and it blew my mind because I hadn't seen anything else like it. And since that time, when did that book come out?
2004.
Okay, so I had it right at the beginning and
Right.
automatically made it required reading for any one of my students. So before we dive into your work, I've been such a big fan of yours because to me, you have such a clear voice around transformation. And a
Right.
very wonderful way of languaging the journey. How did you get into this work yourself? What sort of led you on your personal journey?
Well, I'm not being facetious when I say that I was given the gift of a lot of challenges. I had the kind of childhood you would not wish on any child, and I kept on tumbling further and further down into darkness. And in my early 20s, I had been dieting and throwing up and starving and fasting and then binging. And then when I was 23, I gained 97 pounds in a year. All control just left. And when that didn't work, to numb myself, that's why I was eating, was to numb. I didn't know how to deal, how to be with the pain that I had experienced for most of my life at that time. And then the next year, I tried to kill myself 3 times. And there was a moment the last time I tried to kill myself where I asked my first open-ended question. And that's a question where you ask life a question and you let it go and you don't look for the answer. I didn't know that I was doing that at that time, but out of desperation, I said, if I can't get out of this, what is this all about? And just a short time later, a wonderful, one of the grandfathers of yoga here in the United States, came up from California, and I did a weekend workshop with him, the first of a number of them. And what I got out of his work was, in the seeing is the movement. It was such a novel concept for me. I had tried to fix myself. I had tried to control my compulsions. My family had sent me to psychiatrists and psychologists, and all I heard was, there's something wrong with me because everybody's trying to fix me and I can't control my compulsions. Well, the U.S. Surgeon General shows in their statistics that nobody really can. If you control one, another one will come. But that was a whole new world for me, this idea that there's nothing that need to be fixed, but bring your curiosity to it. And then I was gifted a number of years later to spend time with a man called Stephen Levine, who wrote many books on death and dying. But really, truly, he wrote on how to be fully alive. And he said, my teachers are a couple of Tibetan lamas and tens of thousands of people on their deathbed. He had a 24-hour hotline, in his home for years. And he was the human being that invited me back into my heart. And it was when, after I started spending time with him, that was the first time I started getting curious about this overeater. Yes, I had been addicted to drugs. I had been addicted to alcohol. Those faded away on their own. But the eater was still very much a part of my life. And I could remember once I wished that I would get a horrible disease so I could no longer eat the things that I was eating. And thankfully that didn't happen. But I began to become curious about this whole process of turning away from myself, when I was compulsive. And the more I began to listen, the more I began to see that my compulsion was not the enemy. It wasn't something that was bad and wrong about me. It wasn't something I needed to fix or control. For heaven's sakes, I'm a Taurus. I tried to control it. I once went a whole month without food. And then, of course, I just binged after that. But that's when I began to become curious, and I began to realize that this eater inside of me was a highly crafted survival system that was taking care of all the parts of me, of all the pain that I had experienced that I didn't know how to be with. I knew how to try to fix it. I didn't know how to be with it. And when I self-published, before my publisher picked it up, I called it Healing and Being Healed by Our Compulsions. Mm-hmm. I love that title. They shortened it to The Gift of Our Compulsions. But truly, as you create a different, a new, a interested, a curious relationship with your compulsions, they literally will become your guide back to the peace and the joy that you long for.
Isn't it fascinating how the last place we often look to go to heal our compulsions is to stop fixing them and kind of listen and invite them in and hear their message? It feels like that's so last on the list.
It is because we've never been trained to do it. But what I offer people is I say, if you're having a bad day and you go to a friend and that friend does with you what you do with your compulsions, she gets disgusted with you. She commiserates with you. She ignores you. She just walks out of the room. How does that feel? But if that friend listens attentively, openly, doesn't even need to say a word, and you share where you are, all of a sudden you start feeling better. Why does that happen? Because attention heals. And we've always used our mind, this exquisite tool we've been given to fix, to change, to rearrange, to rise above, to get rid of, to understand. But we're only now beginning to learn the phenomenal power of our own attention. But we need to understand that we left ourselves a long time ago. Most of us were raised by unconscious giants. And so we stashed this part of ourselves and that part of ourselves, and we learned how to hold our breath. And we ran away to this very busy, controlling, fear-based mind. So this says, I can't be with what I'm experiencing. I will die. It goes to that level. But that's the child's view. It was true when we were young, when we, communed with our goldfish. Every night, they turned the lights out and there was just one light in our bedroom, and we literally communed with that goldfish. And then we wake up one morning and the goldfish is dead, and we're just bereft. And our parents say, oh, it's only a goldfish. Oh, we'll get you another one. Oh, stop being a sissy. What happens with this deep grief? You stuff it inside, and this system says, I must keep that stuffed inside, because if it arises and takes me over, then I'm going to be in deep trouble. But the truth is, we're not children anymore. And the truth is that as we learn how, in a very safe and slow way, to bring our attention to our experience. In fact, when I self-published it, I had the story of the tortoise and the hare in there 3 times. And of course, when the publisher edited, they took it out all except one. But it really is. This is not the quick fix. But as far as I can experience, and I've worked with people for 30 years, and it's in my own experience, the art of turning towards rather than turning away is where deep and lasting healing happens.
I'm so glad you referenced the quick fix versus the slow fix. You know, slow seems so unsexy these days because we
Yeah,
value speed.
yeah,
We
yeah.
want fast internet connections. We want fast cars. We want things to move fast. And yet it seems a bit paradoxical because most people who are going for the quick fix methods for their eating challenges, for any kind of compulsions or unwanted habits, there's so many attempts at quick fix that you
Oh,
could be doing that for a lifetime.
and life, and people do it for a lifetime, Mark. And it's 10 pounds in 10 days. But we live that long enough that we see that that actually fuels our compulsion. The US Surgeon General report is that 98% of every pound that is lost in America is gained back plus some, and that's the important place, plus some within a year and a half, because what we try to control controls us. But curiosity, and curiosity hooked with your heart, there's no control there. There's just curiosity, and that isn't about fixing, and it's just phenomenally powerful, just like it was when your friend finally listened to you and you felt better, and you don't even know why you feel better. It's because you were listened to. So this eater, I keep a chocolate bar, a really fine European bittersweet chocolate bar in my house all the time. Now, when I was younger, I would have laughed if you would have told me that I kept chocolate, in my house and I didn't inhale it all in one fell swoop. In fact, I have been known to sneak my children's Halloween candy when they were younger because it's that ha, ha, ha thing. And now I keep it there for two reasons. Number one, to let this overeater inside of me know that I respect it and that if it does need a little bit of comfort, it has it. But if I want to eat more than just one little piece and melt it in my mouth, then that is a signal that there's something going on inside of me that needs me. And what we can learn how to do is take care of what the compulsive one has been taking care of, whether it's eating or shopping or, drugs or alcohol or just busyness. We can learn how to take care of what it has been taking care of, and the compulsion fades away. We don't need to get rid of it. It just is not necessary anymore. But, at times, I have a very, very close family member that is whose cancer has come back, and so the chocolate bar has been more interesting lately. But it's my signal. Come in here. Just close my eyes for a minute or two. Or if I have time, close my eyes and come in and really explore what's going on inside. What is it that this system doesn't want to experience? And can I bring my attention to it in a way that it opens that energy back up again? And then the compulsion is no longer necessary.
You know, you're speaking about having compassion for self and landing back in your heart, in our own hearts. And
Yeah.
yet again, it seems like we get conditioned to believe that if I'm moving and being and living from my heart, that's a dangerous neighborhood somehow. You know,
Really,
don't go
isn't
there.
it? Yeah. Well, and part of that is we do not understand what is meant by the heart. I was interviewed for it in a very interesting book called M Braining, the letter M, which means multiple brains. And they took 600 of the leading edge studies around the world about how we do have three brains. We have this brain, we have the heart brain, and we have the abdominal brain. And the studies have all shown that the main brain is the heart. And it's very interesting to look at the difference between these two brains. This brain is dualistic in nature. I like this, I don't like that. This is good, that is bad. This is right, that is wrong. And that's what we use to as a guide for our life. And it's really insane. This thing says, oh, I'm going to have a bowl of ice cream. No, I'm going to have the carton of ice cream. And then 5 minutes into it, it says, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Now, this heart brain, which at the Heart Math Institute, they did many studies, amazing stuff about how the heart always responds first. They hooked up people to body sensors, heart sensors, and mind sensors. And they put them in front of a computer that randomly chose pictures, either horrific or beautiful pictures. And always the heart brain responded first. This is an intelligent brain. Don't think of it as this mushy thing. This is an intelligent brain that is inclusive. It's not against anything. Then it sends the information to the brain and then finally to the body. But the interesting thing is for many people, and this is on the movie The Living Matrix, I had to rewind it a number of times to see, did I hear this right? That for many people, the heart responded to the picture 6 to 8 seconds before the computer had even chosen it. Why? Because this is connected to everything. This brain is a tool for maneuvering through reality. But when we think of it as our reality, we're at war with ourselves and with life. And I think it was Joseph Chilton Pearce that said the longest 18 inches in the world are from the mind to the heart. But this is our home. And as you begin to come back, because, when I was taught in the seeing and the move is the movement, I still struggled with that. I wasn't doing it good enough or right enough. But it wasn't until I met Stephen Levine and began to have a safe place where this brain could open back up again. That's when you realize this is your home. And this is where we can bring our compulsions and truly bring them right into this healing of our own heart.
Well, it's so fascinating to me how the different brains you're speaking of have very different languages
Yes.
and very different ways of seeing the world. The heart interprets things completely different than the brain does. The brain says, my compulsion is bad, it's no good, and it's the enemy.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
the heart says, as you've been saying, let's listen. Let's invite this in. Two different messages. Who do you want to obey?
And look at my life. I started sneaking candy when I was 10 years old. And I had a little thing that had a skirt around it. And I can remember sitting there and just eating handfuls and handfuls of candy. I can remember when I was 12 coming home and doing a conveyor belt toast. 2 more pieces of toast, butter that, 2 more pieces of toast, eat the toast that's buttered while you're buttering the other toast, okay? Then I gained and lost and gained and lost, and diet after diet and throwing up and everything. And then I'm 23, I gained 97 pounds in a year from hospital scale to hospital scale. Now I'm very natural around food. How did I get there? It wasn't through trying to control. It wasn't. I was an absolute failure at control, and now I'm so grateful that I was.
Now, since you've written The Gift of Our Compulsions, obviously your work evolves and goes in different directions or just kind of embellishes on itself. So tell me kind of how your thinking is these days and what your new book is about, and maybe just some of the core principles that we might want to know about.
So my new book, which I self-published, I didn't even go to my publisher. I wasn't interested in all that rigmarole, but now Sounds True has picked it up, and it's so exciting. They just so believe in this book, and its title is What's in the Way is the Way. So to this brain, what's in the way is something that has to be, gotten rid of. And we've done that long enough that we can see that that doesn't work. We can even muscle one compulsion to the ground and another one will take over, because you remember, it's a finely crafted survival system that is taking care of what you haven't yet discovered how to take care of yourself. And as the gift of our compulsions went out there, and I began to work with more and more people, I began to see that this all works with all the challenges of our lives, not just our compulsions. It's with our relationship challenges, it's with our financial challenges, it's with our health challenges, it's with the challenges that come from dying. And so this book is an expansion of those principles that I use to heal my compulsions. And I think the best way, the quickest way to give an overview of this book is the metaphor that it begins with. And I absolutely love this metaphor, and it's called the Meadow Metaphor. And so imagine a beautiful meadow. I live here in the Northwest. I love hiking up on Mount Rainier, and these meadows, oh my God, they're just so colorful, and marmots everywhere, and there's the gorgeous white mountain and noble fir trees, and bees and hummingbirds and all of this. The meadow represents life, and it represents this creative flow that is life. Everything flows in the meadow. Day flows into night, winter into spring, life into death, death into life. The fir tree doesn't wish it was a maple tree. The marmot mommy doesn't keep her babies underground because it's afraid that the hawk will come. Everything is the flow, and everything is open to the flow. And all of us lived in and as that meadow when we were very young, because there was a time there were no thoughts in our head. I mean, no, that's kind of amazing to think of, because we now have 65,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are repeats from the day before. But we lived in that. But most of us were raised by unconscious giants that had left themselves a long time ago, and they gave us the sacred wounds of invasion and abandonment. And so we began to learn how to tighten our body and hold our breath and try to get away from what we are experiencing by going into our head. And I oftentimes say that we move from human being to human doing. So imagine that the clouds in the sky, they lowered, and they began to whirl and swirl around you and permeate your head. And that's what I call the cloud bank of struggle. I said this in The Gift of Our Compulsions. Our core compulsion is to struggle. All the other compulsions are an attempt to numb out from this struggle. So this book is about how to heal that core compulsion, which is to struggle. And one of the most important things about this metaphor is you've never left the meadow. You just think you have. And I say somewhere in that chapter, just imagine an alien coming and landing right on Earth, right beside this meadow, and it sees you just running around this meadow trying to get to what you want and get rid of what you don't want, and you have all these clouds around you, and he's just very perplexed because he sees that everything you long for is already right here. But we don't know how to come home. So this book is about seeing through our addiction to struggle itself. And it's like we talked about earlier, good, bad, right, wrong. Oh my God, we struggle with the length of the stoplight. We struggle with how our hair looks on any given day. We struggle with bigger things also. But that struggle cuts us off from this joy of being fully here and fully alive.
It seems as if it's an interesting setup being alive as a human being on planet Earth, because just popping out of the womb by its very nature
Yeah.
ain't easy. It's a struggle. They just give you a little tiny tunnel to move down.
With great forces.
Right. It's not like the red carpet opens up
No,
and there's
no.
music playing. So how do we kind of context that, yeah, we get hooked on struggle, but at the same time it's almost the setup for us coming into the
Exactly.
world.
Exactly. This came all in one fell swoop when I was writing What's in the Way. Life is set up to bring up what has been bound up so it can open up to be freed up so we can show up for life. So let's just take a step back. The yin and yang symbol to me, Mark, is one of the most powerful symbols on this planet. This dance that we find ourselves in is a dance of duality. There is dark and light. There is day and night. There is male and female. Every single atom has a positive and negative charge. And in the yin and yang symbol, the dark and light are not on opposite sides of a line. They are actually nestled together. And in the dark is a point of light. And in the light is a point of dark. So one of the most startling realizations that happens on this journey back to your authentic self and back to life is you begin to realize that the challenges of your life are not here because you have done something wrong. God is punishing you. They did something wrong. Your challenges are here to help you see more clearly this conditioned separate self that you have taken on. And I call it look to unhook. The more you can begin to see fear. Oh my God, I lived in so much fear. I lived in dread. And I tried to eat it away, drink it away, smoke it away, busy it away, kill myself it away, and it wouldn't go away. And it wasn't until I learned how to turn and be curious to actually begin to explore the experience of dread. I had to do it in my body first before I could do it in the story in my head. But as I did, it began to lose its power over me. Mm-hmm. And so our challenges are tailor-made. We so often are a victim to our challenges, so we don't gather the gifts that are there. We so often feel that we have to fight with our challenges, so we don't gather the gifts that are there. And so if we can begin to change our relationship in that way, to understand that our challenges are here in order to show us something, all of a sudden we get very curious and we begin to explore. And that's who we naturally are. We are naturally curious. And our curiosity has gotten caught in this world of struggle out here. This work is about freeing it up so you can show up for your life and unhook from what tightens you so that you can come back. So it seems to be that this is a schoolroom and the challenges are our teachers.
On the one hand, what you're saying seems so simple, and I mean simple in its elegance. And on the other hand, it's so difficult.
Yes, because we've been conditioned.
Yes.
Completely to struggle. So in this book, I did a 10-week series, 10-week, at the end of each chapter is an invitation to begin to strengthen your ability to be curious about what is going on and your ability to be spacious. That's the heart. And we start with just a few minutes a day. If that calls to you, if people have been doing it for longer, they can do it more. But we need to learn how to develop this exquisite tool of this brain, using it to pay attention to what is rather than fix, change, and rearrange. And we need to open this brain again the heart brain that had to be shut down when we were young. It was not safe to have this alive, aware innocence open and available to life. we had to shut it down. And I can't tell you how many people have said, not only does this work make sense, but also that they feel like they come home when they come home to the heart. But it's like learning a language. And so that's why I did this at the end of each chapter, a 10-week series. So slowly you can develop that so you can show up for your life rather than always struggling with your life.
You know, something, Mary, that's coming up for me as you're speaking is I'll often meet people, you know, not just in their teens or 20s who are dealing with the kinds of challenges we're speaking of, but people in their 60s and 70s who are still repeating the
Over and over.
same negative thinking, struggles, compulsions over and over. It feels to me, not it feels like, I've noticed that it's never
Yes.
too late.
Never, ever, ever too late. You know, and it's one person asked Stephen Levine, how long does this take? Because we're so, you know, okay, do this and get done with it, you know. He said it's the work of a lifetime. What I add to it, to hear this message, because really what we're talking about is the language of consciousness. What we have been living in is the language of unconsciousness. It's based on fear, it's glued together with judgment, and it's always trying to get rid of what it doesn't like and get to what it does like, and this never brings us the peace we long for. This is the language of consciousness, the ability to be curious about what is going on, the ability to not go to war with it, so that we open up and begin to receive all the gifts. For heaven's sakes, in all the great myths of the world, when the hero or the heroine is going to get, you know, the magic wand or the Holy Grail, they have to go to the difficult places. They have to go to the mountain and in the cave where the wild boar lives that has killed everybody that has ever gone there. And you have to get 3 hairs from the tail of the boar and then bring them to the White Witch of the North, and she makes a potion, and then that opens up the doorway to where the magic wand is. And so we're learning how to become conscious, which we thought it was about rising above, going, well, I did. And then when I started waking up in the 60s, I was going to unending orgasmic bliss, you know. And thankfully that didn't work, because it's learning how to be here. This is what we long for more than anything, is to learn how to show up for reality rather than always trying to create or fix reality. And this is coming home. In fact, Joseph Campbell, the wonderful author that and professor at Sarah Lawrence that created many books on myth, and he was our most beloved teacher on mythology. At the beginning of my first book, I put a quote from the beginning of The Power of Myth, the quote that he put there. And this is what he says. People say that what we're searching for is the meaning to life. I don't think that's what we're searching for at all. We're searching for the experience of being alive, so that our experiences on the physical plane resonate in our very innermost being, and we again know the rapture of being alive. I believe this so strongly that in my world, our world will be healed one person at a time. The last chapter is called The Song of the Heart. And you look at our world and you see that there is so much suffering on our planet because we are living through a phase where we're addicted to suffering. And slowly and surely, we're beginning to open up into the place beyond struggle. And one person at a time, when you begin to heal the war inside of you, and believe you me, compulsions will be your teacher on that, and that war doesn't work, you become a healing presence in the world. That as you go to the grocery store or you drive down the freeway, you are with life in a way that heals it. And that makes a difference.
You're reminding me how I think human beings, when we don't know our power, when we don't
Yes.
know the power of our hearts, when we don't know the power of our soul, our spirit, we feel powerless and
Yes.
we're clueless as to what's possible in our own self expression
Yeah.
and how we show up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't call it becoming powerful. I call it becoming empowered.
Mm-hmm.
You become whole. A whole person is not a perfect person. Remember, every single atom is made out of positive and negative charge. We are all a dance of dark and light. We've gotten into this strange idea that if we can just get ourselves together and be perfect, then everything will be okay. And that never happens. There's a quote that I put in Belonging to Life at the end of it, a Zen quote I absolutely love. Freedom comes when we're without anxiety about non-perfection. Wow. And compulsions will help you integrate all of these parts that you thought were unacceptable. And they come into the wholeness that you are. And then your energy, I mean, literally, if you walk into a room and you don't even say anything to anybody, you make a difference because the field of your energy is present and flowing. Remember the meadow again. We come back into the flow of life. We are the flow of life, and then life flows through us. And oh my God, I mean, I'm not smart enough to write all my books. I'm really not. My greatest strength is I know I'm not smart enough. And so I just let go and it just pours through me. And people say, "Oh, you're an author." And I say, "Well, really, I'm more of a scribe, actually, because that's what happens the more you integrate all these parts. Compulsions and how we've dealt with them is about trying to get rid of parts. And that is just endless heartache. So let's incorporate, let's include, let's become whole so that we become a part of the healing of our planet.
Which is something that it seems like we must do. And,
Yes.
you know, as you were quoting Joseph Campbell, that this is a life's work.
Yes.
To me, that's a powerful way to context it because, well, what do you mean a lifetime? In a way, the learning never stops. That takes it out of the
Never.
quick fix mentality and
Yes.
lets us be
Yeah.
this beautiful work in progress.
And fascinated, absolutely fascinated. And there's something I want to add here that I think is very important. I had the good grace to spend a lot of time with Brian Swim. You know, he's a mathematician and just, oh my goodness, just one of the most aware, intelligent, beautiful hearts on this planet. And with Thomas Berry, he did something when they were both in Seattle, I think in the early 90s, and they took like 10 or 12 of the major evolutionary shifts that have happened on this planet. And they showed how, as the old is dying and the new is being born, the old is very chaotic as the winds of the new come in. We are in that time. We are in the time of moving from the Cenozoic to the Echozoic era. We are living in the time of a shift of eras. And the whole fear-based mind that has become addicted to struggle is now its time is passing, but it rises up just like a star expands before it collapses into a black hole. So we look on this planet, we go, oh my God, ISIS and Ebola and cancer and all of this. But I have a couple of armchairs on the moon, and I just invite people to come and sit with me and look at this whole thing from a broader perspective. And you will see that the old is dying, but something new, something very alive, something that is from this main brain. Our heart is being born. And I see it everywhere. Of course, I hang out with people that are interested in this, but those people are going out and they're seeding the world. And I really, truly have a great vision. It may not happen, in my lifetime, but something is happening. And it is a healing on our planet, the likes of which we have longed for a long time. And I say in this last chapter, the Song of the Heart, that you are a part of this healing. As you heal the war inside of you, and compulsions will show you war doesn't heal anything, whether you're warring with your compulsions or you're warring with a neighboring country, that as you heal the war inside of you, the war of struggle that brings so much suffering, you become a part of the healing of our planet.
Well, that is a beautiful statement and a beautiful prayer and a beautiful affirmation. May it be so, for each one of us and for all of us. I feel like we've just begun.
Yes, that is true, but it's happening.
Yes, and when I say we, I'm talking about me and you. It feels like we've scratched the surface of what you have to say, and I would just love for you, Mary, to share with viewers and listeners how we can stay in touch with you and your world and what we should know about.
Oh, they can go to maryo'malley.com, Malley, no apostrophe. And I do retreats. My next retreat is going to be in Denmark this summer, and then back in Hawaii, which is such a fantastic place, to lift yourself up out of your everyday world and come to such an exquisite place that invites you into what Joseph Campbell is talking about, the rapture of being alive. And we explore in these retreats how you can look to unhook from your story of struggle. I also do, phone groups and phone counseling all over the world, and then there is a new website that we have created for the new book. It's just What's in the Way is the Way, and it is getting, it's so amazing the endorsements that this book is getting. So it's very easy, if you're inclined to purchase the book, to go to that website, besides seeing all of the wonderful people that are saying yes to this book. And if your listeners would like, I invite them to email me at awaken@maryo'malley.com. And there's 3 cards that we can send them. One is a question mark, which reminds you to be curious. One is a heart, which reminds you to respond with your heart. And one says soft belly, that reminds you to relax out of the world of struggle. Take a big, deep breath and show up for what life is showing you.
Mary, thank you so much. Thank you for being such an inspiration and such a wise woman. I so
thank
appreciate
you. It's been a joy.
Yay. It's been great to speak with you, and I'm so appreciating how you deliver such a beautiful message, and may it get out there more and more.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Once again,